Will, who had his first year this year, did a great job as program coordinator. Hampton, who's isolated himself in the back. Our systems analyst, who's magnificent as always. Our ADs, our project leaders, our group members. This has been a really wonderful year, and you've been doing some cool stuff, exciting stuff. So thank you all for your work, for your energy, and here's Will.
Okay, so this is the sort of order of the presentations. I'm going to start with this, so you guys sort of know which order you're going in. But I also wanted to say, I had some notes, but I also have some animated GIFs that, are basically just a way of saying thank you. Guys, for a wonderful, wonderful year. It's been really interesting for me, and things are going to run a little bit differently than they have in the past. So here's a quick rundown on how things are going to go. We're going to have 5 really quick presentations from each of the project group, and each group is going to have about 6.5 minutes to present. So we should be out of here in no more than 45 minutes, and at that time we invite you to follow us to Fact 7, Fact 9, Fact 10, Fact 14, and Fact 17, and then also Fact 17's Diane's office, to interact individually with the project groups, to engage in more discussion, and also to eat some snacks. Just a little levity. All right, well, I think Currents is up first.
Okay. It's an awesome thing to be current. It means that you're going with the flow and conscious that everything can change in the blink of an eye. 1 second you're, say, riding your bike, and the next you're on the ground bleeding. In an instant, times have changed, and you must deal with the new reality. In this spirit, let me tell you a little bit about our year. Inspired by the events in Egypt, Tunisia, Libya, Syria, and of course, Occupy Wall Street, we, like so many others, began to wonder where all these uprisings were headed. Would they be seen as a tragical, historical what if, like the Prague Spring? Or maybe they would be remembered more like 1848, when revolts spread like wildfire, but none actually resulted in a revolution. And in the public debates about the meaning of these events, the rhetoric we kept hearing centered not around the words communism or socialism, but social media. The digital component was the piece everyone wanted to debate. So we said, all right, let's invite scholars to question how digital media is affecting modern activism, like Malcolm Gladwell did in his much publicized New Yorker essay, "The Revolution Will Not Be Tweeted." Gladwell argues that the role of digital activism in these recent movements has been overblown by, quote, techno-evangelists, who he says underestimate the sacrifice, courage, and real-world connections needed to create meaningful social change. When we called for papers, we envisioned scholars expanding on Gladwell's thesis, but instead, what we got was a rambunctious reply. In our first piece, From Activism to Occupation, Jim Brown takes issue with Gladwell's suggestion that digital activism blunts the possibility of change and takes issue with his idea that it, quote, appeases our lethargic non-involvement and deludes us into thinking that clicks and likes and reposts are the equivalent of, say, a lunch counter sit-in. Brown proposes digital activism is instead best understood as a rhetorical practice that occupies and transforms spaces, exposing contradictions and power imbalances. For instance, when hackers rewrite code, it draws our connections into the contradictions in procedure and in fact demonstrates how entangled online and offline life have become. And in this context, online activism can transform the rhetorical space. Ultimately, Brown says that in our modern world, these digital efforts can indeed function like the sit-ins of North Carolina or the physical occupation of Zuccotti Park. In our second piece, John Jones dissects the idea that digital media's increasing involvement in online activism constitutes a major change. He places the debate in a broad historical context of networks and reframes the issue as being defined not by the digital aspect, but rather as simply an extension of the familiar network structure of human associations. Jones argues against Gladwell's praise of hierarchical structures as being more effective and uses WikiLeaks' 2010 release of U.S. diplomatic cables and the resulting international effort to prosecute Julian Assange as a case study for the way network activism can organize an online society that resists network power in traditional spaces. Next up, Jeffrey Smith zeroes in on the Internet Defense League as an example of an online activism that would be not possible without digital technology. Smith argues that the Internet's greatest advantage lies in how it allows like-minded people to mobilize during times of opportunity or crisis, something he connects with Kairos, arguing that digital networking literally changes the kairotic element of modern politics by allowing activists what he calls network Kairos, which provides them a way to perceive the right time for action and then mobilize a response before the kairotic window closes. In a similar vein, our next essay by Rhode Island scholar Joanna Portman Daly reminds us that we must connect in order to make change, and online communication tools allow us to connect in spades. Further, it allows us to keep abreast of the issues we care about. To illustrate her claim, Portman Daly profiles 10 college student activists who completed interviews and recorded time-use diaries for their social media use. She uses these student stories and their accompanying data to demonstrate how the concept of public pedagogy can be used as a lens to analyze the informal learning that occurs within digital spaces, illustrating its powerful civic value. We will also have a script as well as a downloadable MP3 from Trevor Hoag's wonderful interview with Rita Rayleigh during her recent visit to campus.
One of the things people are skeptical about with digital media and digital activism is this idea that you can't build flesh and blood solidarity through networks.
Well, since this is following from a conversation about fandom, and this won't translate as well to print, but fandom is a good example in the sense that you see how meaningful it is for people to think about the communities to which they belong or to which they participate. You could never tell someone who was active in the fan world that what she was doing was somehow not real.
So what happens when you're super current? Well, for us, we began to question what we stand for as publishers. And our response was we began to design a new author agreement that allows for open access and leaves the copyright with the authors. And in the process, what we discovered is that opening access to scholarly work is still very much a fight in progress, something the dastardly status quo academic publishers are staunchly resisting. So we, like the valorous cat-signaled Internet Defense League, have pledged to carry on the fight. Thank you.
All right, so AV is up next.
Hi, we're AV. So you know all of us, and so I don't need to introduce us to you. But we're glad that you're here. Thank you for being here. I also want to take a moment to thank Eric for being such an awesome project manager and being really great to work with. He's going to be AD next year, so he's going to be your boss. You better respect. And he's about to do awesome on his what is it? Field exam?
Yeah.
I'm old, so I don't know. But so yeah, that's it. And please watch our thing. And we're happy to represent the DWRL both nationally and internationally through this podcast. So we hope you like this and like our work.
The year was 2012. Neil Young and Crazy Horse headlined the Austin City Limits Music Festival. The presidential debates between Mitt Romney and Barack Obama were in full swing, and Hala Herbley had yet to complete her dissertation. Meanwhile, in the basement of the Flawn Academic Center, a group of graduate students were putting together the rhetoric and technology podcast that would define a generation. Have you ever wished you could go back to those days when Neil Young dominated the top 40 charts and Dr. Herbley's name had yet to go down in University of Texas history? Well, now you can with the first season of the Digital Writing and Research Lab's Zugma podcast. From the very first episode, listeners knew something revolutionary was happening.
It's going to be a podcast about rhetoric in everyday life and everyday practice. And I think that that's where technology comes in, right?
And who could forget the episodes that followed? From the interview with technology guru Bob Stein in Reading.
When you start to give yourself up into these sort of new modalities of reading and learning, something that actually I think was ridiculously unsatisfying and hard suddenly can become fun.
To Hype Machine founder Anthony Volodkin's appearance in Sharing.
Hi, I'm Anthony Volodkin. I'm the founder of Hype Machine. Hype Machine is a music website that's been around for over 7 years that looks at the most blogged music on the web.
From procrastinating...
There really is so much emotion caught up in procrastination. And it's a lot of negative feelings, a lot of pain, disappointment, shame, and self-loathing.
To trolling.
Until people, particularly people in the media, are willing to just drop this us-them rhetoric, until they're willing to really think about the ways that their behaviors are reflected in trolling behaviors and vice versa, you're always going to have trolling, and you're always going to have a place for the trolls to go. So trolls essentially live and are most comfortable where people are the least self-reflective. And that's kind of the state that we find ourselves in now.
From the Conference on College Composition and Communication in Las Vegas...
I would say my time in the CWRL, it's hard for me to make the switch to the D, was probably the most transformative thing that happened to me. We were not only allowed, but we were encouraged and almost required to be experimental.
Yeah.
I look back on that time and just think, wow, I was really lucky to be there with that.
To a chat with Austin, Texas-based documentary maker Ben Steinbauer.
Lots of stuff that was big in the tape trading community when it was possible to put that stuff online. E-Bombs World was kind of the first place. And then YouTube came along, and I noticed that as the Winnebago Man clip became more accessible, it started to get quoted more and more. So I remember seeing it in SpongeBob SquarePants, and there was a Ben Affleck movie, a Christmas film called Four Christmases, where there's a line quoted from it.
Now all these episodes can be yours for free. All you have to do is look up the podcast on iTunes or the Zoogma website. These free downloads include every one of Zoogma's memorable guest stars.
One of the things that can be really helpful in getting over procrastination is to procrastinate the shame and to procrastinate the angst.
Rhetoric and writing are about, expression, argument, the available means of persuasion. And those are not controversial claims. And to claim that this one medium that happens to be the one that has been dominant for the recent past, it's an arbitrary choice. So in terms of writing, I want students to see that as well, that the choice of medium is a rhetorical choice. It's enabling and constraining certain kinds of expression.
When we think about the full composing process, at least in school contexts, we often think in terms of students writing lots of drafts on whatever technology that they're using, and that they're submitted or they're published, but we don't actually engage them, in fact, in the production process of getting something published.
And, of course, you can relive your favorite moments with the Zoogma team.
Hello, my name is Andrew Uzendowski. We are going to talk about procrastination from a different perspective.
Well, funny you should ask that, because there is, in fact, no German word for it.
I really, really enjoy the TV show Pretty Little Liars.
Cat consultant!
Hey, I'm Lisa Gilisarian.
Hi, I'm Michael Roberts.
Since it first hit the airwaves, Zoogma has been downloaded in 34 states and 20 countries. With over 850 total downloads, now is your chance to become part of that fan base and push Zoogma beyond the 1,000 mark. And for those listeners who download now, keep an eye out for special bonus features, like the podcasting group's video coverage of the 2013 DWRL Speaker Series, featuring a talk by University of California, Santa Barbara's Rita Raley.
Tactical media is speculative in that it does not predict, prescribe, or program future outcomes. It rather activates, sets into motion, unsettles the status quo.
And coming soon, 2 all-new episodes of Zoogma. Multi-mediating will feature an interview with Rita Raley and various strategies for incorporating technology into rhetoric classrooms. Eating will feature interviews with food writers and scholars, so don't wait another day. Visit the Zoogma website, the iTunes Store, or Liberated Syndication to get the first season of Zoogma now. And follow the podcast's Twitter handle or like Zoogma on Facebook to get even more updates. Act now. This free offer is only valid until iTunes stops working or the Zoogma site crashes, so hopefully for a very long time. But why not act now before you forget?
Meow. The Digital Writing and Research Lab.
Meow.
I really enjoyed that last piece. Thank you for coming to hear our story about our year with the Jump. This marks the first year the Jump has been a group on its own within the DWRL. Throughout this year, we've worked closely with Judson Hodgson, the founding editor. We've also worked closely with Megan Giafania in the fall while undergoing the transition. And of course, we couldn't put out an issue without our own wonderful editorial collective, several of which are also staff in the DWRL. This image is from one of our editorial members, Anthony Calamani, so credits go to him. As first-time editors of the new site, we've been adding to the manual that Mike Widener, who designed the site on Drupal, created for the new editors. We hope to ease the process for future editors. With all the managerial work that goes on behind the scenes as we build an issue, we eventually arrived at this final product of our fall 2012 issue called Digital Boundaries. We had fun making the introduction to the fall issue. It only took us about, 4 takes? We couldn't have done it without the lab's equipment and the assistance of Justin and Will Burdett. So thanks to you both. An entire class of students from Michigan Technological University collaborated on this digital media proliferation website. The 2 responses for this project had widely different takes. Dr. Brewer addressed the pedagogical challenges, while Dr. Woodworth detailed her personal experience navigating this map. The theme of the issue, Digital Boundaries, had at its center the map, but it also looks at the boundaries in the sense of limitations and whether these limitations or boundaries are necessary. We see this with the multimedia representation of Kate Chopin's The Story of an Hour, and with the remix that argues against a copyright law that would impose restrictions on the ways that we use the internet. Earlier this spring, Stephen and I led a workshop on creating multimedia assignments, presenting the Jump not only as a publication venue for these wonderful undergraduate student projects, but also as a pedagogical resource for instructors who teach rhetoric or design multimedia assignments. One way that the Jump functions as a pedagogical resource is in the bridging of gaps between the undergraduate students and rhetorical scholars and instructors. Here we have a multimedia response to our very own Kate Blaub, who also wrote an illuminating description of her response to the representation of The Story of an Hour. Another multimedia response is a response to the Digital Media Proliferation App. This is also a response to what Stephen and I entered alt descriptions so that users who access the PowerPoint via a screen reader would have an idea of each image's purpose. In addition to ensuring that responses are accessible, we also ask for accessibility materials for each student project. In most cases, the materials require further editing. So for example, we had an hour-long audio description of the map that we edited into time zones by several files. We also often have to separate transcripts of auditory information from descriptive work of the visual information. And on the advice of our accessibility specialist, Stephanie Rosen, the remix video here included all 4 possibilities for accessibility, ranging from the preferred multimedia forms to its typewritten versions.
Our commitment to accessibility will continue in our upcoming spring issue, Reinterpretations and Reinventions. Gorgias Revisited by Timothy Simmons revisits Plato's dialogue Gorgias through a video remix that pulls from the work of Will Ferrell, now playing Socrates, and John C. Reilly as a picked-upon Gorgias. Throughout the piece, he draws our attention toward the emotional impact that these discussions might have had on their participants. We're especially excited to present the Jump's first video game. Face Change was created in our very own Scott Nelson's class, Writing in Digital Environments. As players move through the game, they're confronted with familiar elements, money and time and Facebook likes, that help advance an argument about Facebook's slacktivism and social change through visual, oral, and procedural rhetorics. We're also going to be showcasing Jennifer Gilmore's video project, Closed Books. In this silent and emotionally intense video, the author begins to explore the trauma of sexual abuse. As one reviewer noted, I very much felt as though I was a book being forced open, not because I had any similar kind of experience, but because I was being forced to see this terrible thing happen to someone I had begun to care about. Very powerful. Yellow Wallpaper is an animation project submitted by UT student Nidhi Reddy. This richly multimodal piece explores the various themes within the story, Yellow Wallpaper, by Charlotte Perkins Gilman, by recreating its airy, discomforting atmosphere. She'll be presenting the video at several film festivals. We're enthusiastic about getting this project up on the Jump. As we close out our year on the Jump, Rachel and I have turned our attention toward a CFMP for a forthcoming special issue. Our call is for projects that use remediation as the starting point for critical engagement for a given text. With the call, we hope to persuade professors to insert remediation into their standard assignments as a multimedia option. There's often the sense that multimedia work becomes an end to itself. But in this special issue, we want to highlight just how versatile a practice like remediation can be. In the call, we're asking for work from both rhetoric and literature classes. And we hope to show that in both, remediation can work as just one possible way of creating arguments. The Jump, as you all know, is focused on undergraduate projects. And outside of the issues we publish, there aren't too many hints at what we've actually been doing all year long. We figured it might be nice to show off some of the behind-the-scenes work that's been going on. We spent quite a bit of time working within the new Jump website. Now, all of the elements that we work with in the Jump are housed under the same roof. Special thanks to Hampton for his assistance this year. The caption he added has been a lifesaver. Most of our time, of course, is spent on email. Even with the benefits of the new site, we're in constant contact with the members from our editorial collective about their reviews and responses, and with our undergraduate submitters about their work. Lately, a lot of our time has been spent writing the CFMP together, and shared Google Docs have been essential. The wiki zoomed by real fast, but it and our meeting minutes and Rachel's organized task lists have been essential. Working on a journal seems like a constant fight against encroaching chaos, and we spend a fair amount of time with a number of spreadsheets that make sure everything is in line and on time. Thank you so much, and keep your eyes peeled for our spring issue.
Hi, we're the Gaming Pedagogy / eBooks group, and our mission really changed from the fall semester to the spring semester. In the fall semester, the group members did some research and archival work with gaming pedagogy in general as a scholarly field, and the history of games at UT in the DWRL. We were looking at trying to think of a way to archive and present information about gaming pedagogy and DWRL games in an ebook form. So in the spring, we shifted towards working on ebooks and figuring out how to decide what kind of format to use when creating an ebook and how to actually go about doing it. So this semester, we created 2 versions of one ebook that are about the possibilities of ebooks for DWRL project groups. The first version we created was using iBooks, which is a Mac program. And I was able to work with this program because my personal laptop has the operating system that's new enough to run the program. But one limitation of iBooks Author is that you have to have one of the newer operating systems. So this is a proof version. It looks like the real version of the iBook we created. It's called ebooks in the DWRL. It has 2 sections. One has several sections containing our suggestions for how ebooks could be used by each of your project groups. And it has some multimedia features that I'll just briefly show you. So there are 2 sections for each project group. One is the possibilities that ebooks hold for each group, and then the next section is an example of what that might look like. So for Viz, we have an example of Viz post. This one is by Laura Thane. It's really easy to just put this text into the program. iBooks Author makes it look pretty, and you can just drag and drop the images. With Currents in the Jump, we put in a student video project.
The bill is S.978.
S978.
There you go. For the AV recording group, we put in just a sample of a Zugma episode. We also thought a transcript of the episode could be a natural accompaniment to the audio. And we embedded part of Rhetorical Peaks, which is one of the games that came out of the DWRL. So this program is very easy to use and make things look pretty, but definitely has limitations, as Jane will be talking about in just a second.
Okay, so yes, it has, the limitation is the accessibility, because the iBook format can only be used on Apple devices, iPads, Macs, etc. So to test the accessibility of ebooks, we decided to create an EPUB that emulated as much as we could what we created with the fancy iBooks Author. So just a little about EPUBs, in case you're not familiar with this file format. It's basically a compiled website built around a single stream of text. Like PDFs, EPUBs can be viewed on virtually any device because it's not a proprietary file type. But unlike PDFs, they actually adapt their layout to whatever device views them, sort of like a mobile website is adapted to an iPhone rather than a computer. So, oh, and I should say too that I'm speaking for Cole Worley, who adapted the entire thing into an EPUB format, but who's not here today. So, don't ask questions. Okay, so to make the conversion, he created a template in Adobe InDesign, which is a difficult program to work with. And but he basically created a simple template that mirrored the types of styles, the hierarchy of styles that we created in the iBook. And then he just sort of plugged in text. And he also created a special formatting for images. And he never found a way to successfully, none of us ever found a way to successfully input videos into the EPUB format. But the images worked, and he was able to test them on a variety of web browsers, and also to put them on a bunch of different mobile devices, like an Android and a Kindle. So that's it.
So if you want to see how our iBook looks as an EPUB or as a PDF or other types of file versions on other tablets than iPad, you can come by Diane's office afterwards where we'll set up our open house with about 7 different tablets that I've been carting around to get these all on there. But I wanted to spend a little bit of time telling you guys about what's in our white paper, what our recommendations are for the groups. So I'll just kind of summarize our ideas. As far as Currents in the Jump, as well as Viz, one main idea we had was edited collections that could either collect several Viz posts or an issue of either journal, or they could cluster around a kind of theme or even best of certain posts on Viz, as well as for blogging pedagogy and lesson plans websites. So we could use ebooks to promote those different projects in a lot of different ways. We also thought you could put together course texts, especially with Viz articles if you were teaching on either something that Viz has published a theme on, or if you have if you're teaching about visual rhetoric. It would be an easy way to collate certain posts that you wanted to use in your class. For the podcast group, we've thought of using the sort of box set model that you kind of got a sense of in Eric's video, where you could include extended material like the entire transcript of a podcast, as well as unedited interviews or supplementary material to go along with the podcast. It could be issued as an ebook. For the games group, we have actually spent most of our last semester thinking about how you could archive material, like the Rhetorical Peaks example, on past games that the DWRL has produced, or that you could even use it, an iBook or an ebook, to put together an article for an online journal like Kairos, the way that the Battle Lines group did last semester as a website. So you could have that as a downloadable ebook as well. One final thought that we had, or two, I guess, for the other projects that the lab puts together. The speaker series could be presented in an ebook as a kind of recap, including video as well as transcript and other supplementary materials, maybe even blog posts or responses to the speaker series event. And you could use ebooks to archive the DWRL handbook as it changes from version to version. So the more details about that will be in the white paper, which you'll be able to get from the lab's website sometime this summer. Thanks.
This year, the Visual Rhetoric Group's mission could be best summed up by the word development. We sought this year to develop rich and textured conversations on our blog Viz, strong and vibrant networks within the DWRL and the larger University of Texas community, and involved and engaged audiences. We had a number of themes and conversations that evolved over the year through the excellent blogging of our group members, Jay, Catherine, Laura, Todd, Chris, and Jim, some of whom are not here today, but I'd like to thank them all for their great work. While each person developed their own questions and concerns, there were many topics that returned again and again. I'll now try to contain myself to just a few highlights from the myriad posts this year, but you'll have to forgive me if I go too long. As this was an election year, our writers found ample material for analysis in the Obama and Romney campaigns. Our writers examined various topics, including Romney's enthymemes, the candidates' use of wristbands and stagecraft, and even how facial expressions and physiognomy play into rhetorical situations. Writers like Chris, Laura, and Jay all consider how visual representations of data, like word clouds and grass, affect our analysis of presidential rhetoric and political divisiveness. Jay's posts in particular, which measures how frequently words like climate change and hope were used in various political conventions, helps readers see the persuasive possibilities in visual argumentation. Other posts that dealt with maps, graphs, and lines included Laura's lengthy work on the secret history of lines, which connected the divides of red states and blue states to those of North and South, as represented in Colin Stern's photographs of the Mason-Dixon line. And she's been invited to contribute to his own publication of these photographs for a press, so that's very exciting. Jay also constructed a series on architecture, not only considering how artists like Arnold Newman photographed architects, but also architectural design's impact on community development, as we're experiencing here in Austin. Viz remained topical with a series of kairotic posts around major holidays and events, many done by Catherine. Her writing this year took us from seeing hipster fashions as Halloween costumes, through representations of family on Christmas cards, to the visual poetics of Valentine's Day. However, Viz would not be Viz, at least under my watch, without pop culture blogging. Catherine's two posts covering the descriptions of clothing in Brad Paisley's recent song, Accidental Racist, were some of the blog's most popular posts this year, as was Laura's discussion of camp in Quentin Tarantino's film, Django Unchained. Our group members have also delved deeply into Web 2.0 phenomenon like Twitter posts, GIFs, and other visual memes. Whereas Jay explored the emotional power of Matt Holliday's slide into second base, and I wrote about political satire on Tumblr and Twitter. Laura discussed how GIFs relate to silent film. Finally, our writers did not neglect to discuss pedagogy amidst all this. Jim, in particular, offered several thoughtful posts on his classroom experiences. One that details using the Firefox add-on Collusion to teach the filter bubble, this year's first-year forum text. A second post that showed readers David McCandless's website, Rhetorical Fallacies, which includes a bingo board for students to learn about rhetorical fallacies. In order to develop networks within the larger UT community, we reached out to other groups, putting their work under our critical lens. Primarily, this involved our ongoing collaboration with the Harry Ransom Center, which we continued with a week-long series on the Norman Bell Geddes exhibit and right now the Arnold Newman exhibit. Yet we also explored the Texas Institute for Textual and Literary Studies program on the fate of the book, visited the Harry Ransom Center's annual Flair Symposium, and experienced the Blanton Museum and South by Southwest. We also covered the work of other DWRL groups, as when I discussed the Zugma podcast's first episode on reading to untangle Pride and Prejudice's visual afterlives. Our greatest interaction with the DWRL, however, occurred when we held our April workshop on incorporating cameras into the classroom, led by group members Laura, Jay, and Catherine. This workshop incorporated Laura's rich overview of the DWRL's many cameras, alongside an explanation of their different capacities and classroom applications. And this is her Prezi here. Jay and Catherine also discussed how Viz itself provides material for classroom instructors, including examples for teaching the differences between objective and subjective claims, as well as helping students recognize tone for both rhetorical and literary analysis. And she's encapsulated all these on the lesson plans website, which you should totally check out if you haven't yet. Finally, part of what we endeavored to do this year was to continue developing the Viz audience. Between September 1st and today, according to our Google Analytics, Viz had almost 91,000 unique visitors, whose average engagement with the website was almost a minute long. We've also built audiences through Facebook and Twitter, allowing engaged users to read our posts and share them with others. And so some of the posts have been able to be seen by numerous hundreds of people. In conclusion, the Visual Rhetoric Group developed textured analyses of multimodal texts, constructed alliances amongst the UT community, and created resources for various audiences. Having seen and heard the presentations today, I of course look forward not only to seeing what the rest of the groups will do next year, but what the Visual Rhetoric will do to build on this work. Thank you very much.
Can you believe that? We did that whole thing in less than an hour. Yay! Let's everybody give yourselves a round of applause. I can't believe you guys.
And your first response was, "Is that it?"
No, I didn't mean like. I just meant, did everybody go? Yeah, I mean, I can't believe how much technology you guys were able to cram into less than an hour. But please do come down the hall, join us for open house, some snacks, and again, let's give everybody a round of applause.